My name is Colton James. I'm the co-owner of Eden, and today I'm going to be answering some frequently asked tattoo business questions. Let's get into it. All right, so we're gonna start with some content questions because as a tattoo studio owner, really 90% of my job is like posting on TikTok. All right, so the first question is, how much should I post? Specifically for Instagram, because that's the platform tattooers use the most, but I would say you can't really post too much just because you're going to be limited by how many tattoos you do. So normally what I tell people is shoot for 3 or 4 a week if that's what you have the capacity to do. It's more important to be consistent than to, post a certain amount of time. So it's whatever you can keep up with and then still maintain the quality of whatever it is that you're putting out. Should I post personal stuff? This is a pretty polarizing one, I feel like, especially for tattooers. I'm actually in favor of posting personal stuff, and the reason why is because with the tattoo industry being as saturated as it is, there are a million really good tattooers out there, but if someone can connect with you as a person and not just your artwork, that is one thing that you have that nobody else has that can set yourself apart. So if somebody really clicks with you, then they're more likely to get tattooed by you. So I do like posting personal stuff. I guess the only thing that I would caution about is like not overdoing it, just because nowadays your Instagram is your portfolio. So if somebody goes to your profile, they don't want to only see personal stuff and hardly ever tattoos. So I definitely think there's a good balance to be found, but any way that you can show your personality or your interests, especially on Instagram stories, I feel like is a really good way to connect with potential clients. And then I think the other thing that people worry about with that is being unfollowed if you're showing your personal side. I personally don't worry about that too much, and I don't think artists should, because if somebody is going to unfollow you because you don't like rock climbing, or if you have kids, then they're probably not your clientele anyway, Okay, so the next one is, should I run paid ads? This is a good one, and I think it might be changing a little bit. I'm not going to say for certain. I think it's something that we have to keep an eye on. I think right now there's a bunch of tattooers on Instagram. Not too many of them are running ads, so I do think it's a space where you can stand out. I would caution you, though, don't just throw money at ads and think that that's going to get clients, because there is a science to it. You do have to be good at it. It's just like making content. So I think you should only do it if you have somebody that can help you, at least show you the basics. And then the other thing that I think is really important about running paid ads is I feel like it is just to supplement what you've put out there already, not to replace organic content. And I feel like that's really important with tattoos because it takes a lot of trust to get tattooed. So generally, nobody's going to impulse buy a tattoo from you. They're having to see your stuff multiple times. So if you just run an ad and say, book with me, they might book with you then. If they do, that's great. If they don't, they're probably going to follow your page. And if you're not showing up and putting out stuff on a regular basis, or if the ad doesn't even look good, then it's probably not going to work. So I would just say, if you do it, get some help unless you're an expert at marketing, and make ads that look like content, like good content. How do I come up with content ideas? There are a couple main ways that I like to say. First of all, I think it's totally okay to take inspiration from other people. Obviously, you don't want to copy content. If it's a trend, that's kind of different. But if you're seeing somebody out there that's a tattoo artist, or it could be in any industry, but if they're doing something that is working really well for them and you can see a way that you can apply it to yourself and your work, I think it's totally okay to take inspiration from that, because odds are if somebody else is doing something well, there's something about that format that Instagram likes or that the audience likes, right? So there's something there. So that's how I think you can get a lot of ideas, is by looking at other people's content, especially from outside your niche, right? The other thing that I like to say and that I try to do, and it's really tough, but you want to try to think about things that potential clients might be thinking about, or potential viewers that you don't think about very often as a tattoo artist or somebody in the tattoo space. So the example that I always use is, we had a reel go super viral on all platforms. It crushed. And it's literally just a video of me filming Deanna packing blue over this portrait. And it looks crazy, admittedly, but that's something that she does every day. And I watch her do it all the time. So something in me I was watching that and I was like, I think that would look really weird for other people. And so just doing that was a great hook. We obviously kind of expanded on it. We did follow-up videos on it and why she did that and stuff like that. And if you can just get yourself in the mindset of like, okay, what do other people want to know, or what's something unique about what I'm doing that maybe people don't think about or see all the time, I think that's a really good way to stand out with the content, other than just posting really good tattoos. All right, so now we're going to get into some tattoo business and studio ownership questions. even if you don't own a tattoo studio, you have a product, a service that you're selling to people. So you do, in a sense, own your own business. So I think this stuff is important for everybody to know, whether you own a shop or not. All right, so the first one is, what's the biggest thing you've learned with opening a studio? I think the biggest thing, and I think every tattooer that owns a shop or every business owner can attest to this, but it's a lot of work. And even if you anticipate it being a lot of work when you get into it, there are just so many other things that come with a gig that just come up that you don't think you'd ever have to deal with. That just adds more stuff to your plate, and it adds stress, and you have to figure it out. Sometimes, especially with tattooers who don't necessarily want to run a business, they just want to tattoo. All that stuff can really weigh on you and make it feel like it's not worth it to open a shop or to own a shop. So I think it's really important that you figure out what your priority or what your goal is with opening a studio or owning a studio, and you keep that in mind when that stuff weighs down on you, because you know that you're doing it all for a reason, right? And it's all worth it. Okay, so the next one is, should I discount my tattoos? I would say yes, in certain instances. I know that's a little bit of a hot take, and I get why you never want to discount your work, or you never want to have people view your work as not worth a certain amount. However, I do think where there's nuance here is with building a portfolio or building a style, because the tricky thing that we don't think about a lot, but tattooing is so vast and there are so many styles and different kinds of pieces that if you're trying to put a price on a tattoo or on a session, even if it's the same artist, it could be worth different amounts because the demand is going to be different. So let's say there's an artist that does neo-traditional, and that's pretty much all they tattoo. And they want to get into black and gray realism portraits. Well, the demand for that is probably going to be just about zero because people aren't seeing that and they're not going to be asking for that. And also, let's be honest, the first black and gray realism portrait they do probably isn't going to be as good as their neo-traditional tattoos. So if we're thinking of it of a supply and demand sense, like, yes, different styles, or when you're branching out and building your portfolio, it's going to be worth less than what you're really good at doing, which should be worth a lot, right? So I love discounting tattoos, especially with flash or pre-made designs. And I think when you discount a certain kind of tattoo or a certain kind of style, it separates it in the mind of the customer of, what you do and what you're great at, that's worth X amount. But there's some incentive or some reason why this particular tattoo or design is lower, whether it's something new or whether it's just something that they really want to tattoo. And I think if you do it that way, then you're kind of eliminating the problem of people just thinking that your tattoos are worth less. Also, generally when that happens, you're not like broadcasting your rates publicly. So it's not like everybody's going to be like, oh, this person dropped their prices, it's worth less. It's a very limited number of people that you're marketing that to. What I am not the biggest fan of is offering just like discounted sessions or just doing like a sweeping discount, like, hey, for this month, I'm offering 20% off of all my tattoos, just because I just worry that if you do that, then people will and if you do that often, then people will just wait till there's a discount to book with you. So I'm not as big of a fan of that, but I think particularly when you're branching into a new style, it's really important to discount your work, or sometimes do it for free, right? If you can't get anybody to buy it at whatever price you want to sell it at. How do I find a manager, content creator, videographer, etc.? So this is kind of tough in tattooing because there aren't that many people that aren't tattoo artists involved with the tattoo industry. So chances are, if you're looking for anybody to help with your business or with your studio, it's going to be really hard to find somebody that has tattoo experience. Or experience within a tattoo shop. So what I like to try to look for is just skills or experience in other industries that might translate to tattooing. If somebody has experience at least getting tattooed, that's definitely always a plus, because there can be a big learning curve with working with tattoos and working with tattoo artists. But that's mostly what I look for. So like in a manager, I definitely look for leadership experience, customer service experience, clear communication if you're going to be having them, work with clients or booking or anything like that. And then with content creators and videographers, it definitely depends on what you're going for. If you're just looking for somebody that's going to be making short form content, I would almost rather have somebody that has a better understanding of this kind of social media rather than videography, because you don't necessarily need like the most beautiful cinematic shots, but you do have to have an understanding of what's going to work well on social media. And then once you can do that, if you can make the shots, the video as beautiful as possible, then that's a huge plus. But if you're trying to decide between the two, that's kind of what I gravitate to. But on the other hand, if you are looking to do more cinematic stuff, long form content, then you obviously want to find somebody that's more well-versed in that. How do I find artists to work with me? So I'm assuming this one is for studio owners, and it's a really good question. The biggest thing I think is being a good artist yourself. That's one huge advantage here that we have here at Eden is obviously Deanna's amazing, and a lot of artists really want to work with her. So the more you can improve yourself as an artist, people are just gonna want to work with you and around you. That's not to say that you don't have other things to offer them, especially if your studio is really cool. Whatever you're offering with incentives as far as like just the environment or just the way you run your business, that's going to be a draw as well. One thing that I recommend a lot and that we've had a lot of success with in the past is inviting artists to guest spot. And when they come in guest spot, they can get a feel for the shop, but also you can get a feel for them. And we've had a lot of guest artists come through that just are going to be great fits all around, and they end up just being a resident artist. So that's one thing that I would do if I had to fill up a studio with artists, is I would just invite as many guests, just get as many people through the door if I can, as I can, and ask them, or hope they ask, if we're hiring full time. Commission or booth rent? So I'm going to answer this one for studio owners, but I think it can actually apply for if you're looking to work in a studio too. So I don't think there's anything wrong with either one. Very successful shops do it both ways. The thing that I always say to look for is basically if you're an artist or if you're a studio owner and you're taking a lot of revenue from your artists, let's say it's commission. If you're taking a lot of commission from your artists, you need to be putting that back into them, because if you're not providing them with anything, then there's no reason for an artist to give you 40%, 50, 30%, whatever it is of their revenue, right? If you are taking that much, you need to be putting that money back into them, right? You need to be earning that commission. One way that I like to think about it is like when you're a studio owner, like, yes, you're hiring artists, but they're also hiring you. They're hiring you to help them with their business, right? So you want to be putting that money back into them. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're not offering them, if the booth rent is low, if the commission is low or whatever, then you really don't need to provide that much except for a safe space to work, right? You're not expected to add all these other things like benefits or booking help or content help or whatever it is. I've actually seen it kind of go the other way too, where studio owners, they'll be on booth rent and their artists aren't paying a lot into the studio and they want to offer more things, but they can't because they don't have the revenue for it. So whatever it is, I think it's just really important to be balanced, whether you're a studio owner or whether you're an artist. How do you invest your money? So I'm not a financial advisor. Not big into crypto or anything like that. But one thing that I think is always a good investment is in yourself or in other people. So that's the first thing that I think of. If I have excess revenue, I'm thinking, okay, how can I get more education or, take a course? And I think this is amazing for tattoo artists too, because I think investing in a seminar is amazing. And then two, if you can invest in other people to either help you with what you're doing or to teach you a new skill or to refine your skill, that money is always going to pay itself back in the future if you're going to the right person or if you're hiring the right person. So that's personally where my mind goes on that. And lastly, where do you think the tattoo industry is going? Obviously, right now, the tattoo industry is becoming more saturated. It's easier than ever to get into tattooing. I personally think that at some point it'll reach a limit. Or maybe if it doesn't reach a limit, I think there's going to be a clear distinction between tattoo studios, tattoo artists, and tattoo clients that are actually offering fine art and not just tattoos, as opposed to maybe fine line shops or street shops or just smaller tattoos. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're going to be an industry changing artist, you need to be creating really quality artwork on people. And I think there will always be a market for that. There will always be a market for people who don't want something because it's the cheapest. In fact, they'll not want it because it's the cheapest. And that they'll have a deeper appreciation for art and tattoos as a whole. I also think that it might not be the worst thing for that if more people are getting into the industry, because one thing that I like about just the industry getting broader as a whole is it's just opening people's eyes to what's possible on skin and what can be done in the tattoo industry. We all know tattoos are addicting. I got my first tattoo. I was hooked right after that. And, you know, when you realize that that's something that you can do, or maybe that's something that you like to do, that's when you can start to get your wheels turning. Look at other artists, look at other shops, and maybe, you know, even though you start getting tattooed with a micro fine line infinity sign, whatever, maybe that sparks something in you to where you are seeking out really high quality custom artwork. So I think kind of the cream is going to rise to the top a little bit, but we'll see. Who knows? If this was helpful, drop a like and a comment. Let us know. Make sure to subscribe. If there's anything that I didn't get to, drop a comment. Hopefully I'll get to it next episode.